Welcome back everyone, it is Eric from Arcania, and today we're going to be checking out the brand new Paradigm Trigger set. The whole thing just got revealed in full, excluding like secret rares and full arts and stuff like that. But this is going to be the final batch of cards that will eventually be lumped into our Silver Tempest set this fall. And I think there's a good bit of pressure on this set because Incandescent Arcana was not the best competitive set by any means. So really hoping we have some more playable cards that we're going to be getting in this set. So fingers crossed. So as you guys can tell, I have not yet actually checked out these cards. These are going to be my, by and large, raw first reactions to these. So again, I'm really hoping we have some good stuff waiting for us in these 98 cards that we have today. But that being said, remember to smack that like button to feed that always hungry YouTube algorithm, and let's jump in and check out these brand new cards. Okay, so we have Bellossom. I think it's the first Bellossom we've seen in quite some time, if my memory serves me correct. Just one attack though, Grass Colorist, flip 3 coins, 80 for each heads. But then you switch this with one of your bench Pokemon. Okay, the fact that this has a switching effect does make this a little bit better because otherwise a flipping attack definitely wouldn't be too enticing. But if we're hitting 160, you know, on average, it can switch into like a Miltank or something. Doesn't seem that awful, but this thing's on a stage 2, only 120 HP, so Sableye can pick this thing off pretty easily as well. Probably not the best thing in the world. It's kind of okay, just nothing great. Okay, we have Ariados. I do believe this was like an early reveal for the set. So it says, as long as this Pokemon is in play, the attacks of your opponent's VSTAR, Pokemon VSTAR cost 1 more. Okay, and you can't apply more than one of these at a time. So that's kind of cool. That means Palkia has to attack for 3 energy, Arceus has to attack for 4, etc. So that's actually like not the worst thing in the world, since Pokemon VSTAR, you know, are largely dominating the game right now, with a couple of exceptions like Mew, Kyurem, and then of course the different like Lost Box decks. But not a bad ability. It's level ball searchable too. Issue, of course, it is a stage 1, and I'm just curious what deck you're playing this in. Like what struggles against Arceus, Giratina, and Palkia, for example. Maybe this could be something in like a control deck that would maybe make a little bit more sense. Cool ability, just not sure how much play this is actually going to see. Okay, we have Virizion, and I do remember seeing all of the different Pokemon of this trio are in the set. Colorless Energy, 4 is 120 plus 70 more if you have Cobalion, Tracheon, and Keldeo on your bench. So 90 for 1. Honestly, not a bad damage to energy ratio. That, of course, is going to knock out low HP things like Sobbles and Comfies. So pretty cool. You can, you know, put some early pressure on with this guy. Definitely gives me vibes of like the whole Regi deck. You're just trying to swarm all of these similar Pokemon together onto your field and start doing a bunch of damage. Definitely curious what the other Pokemon do. I think they were revealed, but I honestly don't remember checking them out. So that will probably determine how good this archetype is. But, you know, you got to figure with a Battle VIP pass, you can get your board pretty much almost entirely set up. So I don't think it's going to be that hard to actually pull this off. Other attack pretty bad, but again, guys, we kind of just need to wait and see how these other partner Pokemon for it are going to be. Okay, we have Chestnut V. This is a card I actually made a short video about earlier in the week. So it's a little bit fresh in my mind, but does have kind of a cool ability. Whenever your active Chestnut V is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So at a glance, I was like, okay, this is really bad. Just making them take 3 damage counters. You have kind of an almost unusable attack here as well. Card's probably awful, but you have to remember this ability technically does stack. So if you have all 4 Chestnut V in play, your opponent's going to take 120 every time they attack into you. So suddenly that makes this ability, I think, a little bit better. And then that's even excluding other cards like Rocky Helmet and the Box of Disaster. I think that's probably the more notable one. That one's like, if it's a tool, of course, and then if your Pokemon is a V and knocked out in one shot, they take 8 damage counters. So if you have a Box of Disaster plus all these abilities, if they do one shot you, they take, what's that, 220, right? So that seems kind of cool, but also just a little bit gimmicky. I really just wish this attack was a bit more usable. Like, it's not impossible to get set up. Like, we do have Gardenia, which has not really proven itself to be that great just yet, unfortunately. But there are also things like the Lost Engine. We do still have Leafeon V as well. But chaining these attacks throughout the game definitely seems like it could be an issue, especially since everything in the format just kind of one-shots you, since, you know, Palkia, you have to fill up your bench, so Palkia can make quick work of you, Kyurem can make quick work of you, so can Mew. So this thing seems just kind of like a gimmick, unfortunately. Okay, so we have Rapidash. And is this like the first holo rare Rapidash we've had in like forever? I really don't remember the last holo rare Rapidash. Most of them have been like bulk rares or uncommons as far as I can remember. But let's check out its ability. Heat boost. Once during your turn, you may discard a fire energy from your hand. If you do, till the end of your turn, tax your fire Pokemon, do 30 more damage. Okay, we have Volcanion EX back, but on a stage 1. So this is definitely a bit worse than Volcanion EX, which of course was a very dominant archetype. I don't want to say dominant. I never liked the deck. It was a very popular archetype, though, I'll say that. And this is basically the same thing. And this does still stack, so if we do have 4 Rapidash in play somehow, we can do plus 120 every time we discard a fire energy from our hand. So that's pretty cool. And we do have some very energy efficient fire attackers. Of course, I think Moltres is going to be the biggest one. That one's already hitting for 90 damage. So 90 plus if we have 4 of these in play, hits 210 for a single energy. Doesn't seem that bad. Now, I am curious to comb through the card pool. I am curious to see what else we have that could be paired with this. But right now, I do just worry a little bit that this is going to be too clunky being a stage 1. Now, I definitely could be wrong, guys, but yeah, right now, I'm cautiously pessimistic about this card. But it is cool to see Rapidash get a card that is, you know, if nothing else, a little bit more viable than most of the bulk cards that it normally gets in the TCG. Okay, next up we have Victini here. Cyst Flame 20, attach up to 2 fire energies from your discard to your Pokemon any way that you like. Now, I actually don't hate this attack. This isn't that bad. Like, typically whenever we see these attacks and it's just like a single energy, it's like pointless because you may as well have just attached the energy that's on this Pokemon to the actual Pokemon you want to power up. But the fact that this gives you 2 energy actually kind of gives us a reason to maybe consider this thing. So of course we compare this with things like Charizard VSTAR, Charizard VMAX, Centiskorch VMAX still is lingering around. And this could force your opponent into, in theory, like a 7 prize game or something like that. But the issue that I have with this card is the fact that it accelerates energy from discard. And the reason that's an issue is because you really want to use this attack on turn 1 of the game, like going second. You really don't want to use this afterwards. And it might be a little bit difficult to get, you know, an energy on Victini plus 2 energy in discard and the basic Pokemon that you want on your bench and get this thing in active. That might be a lot to ask for to get this, you know, to get this attack off, but it's not bad. Definitely not the most groundbreaking card in the world. All right, so it looks like we have the Incineroar line. Let's see. I love the art on this thing. Very different from all the other like intimidating Incineroar arts we've seen over the years. Let's check this thing out. Secret attack. Choose an attack from one of this Pokemon's previous evolutions and use it as this attack. Okay. So we definitely have to check out its pre-evolutions here, and its other attack, 2 fire, 180, discard all energy from this Pokemon. That's fine. So a Magma Basin plus 1 attachment, or like a Raihan plus an attachment, is going to get you there. That's kind of cool. But yeah, 180 is not enough. We need something a little bit more interesting on these pre-evolutions to really consider this card. So more than likely, we want to use Litten just because we want a rare candy Incineroar. So let's check out this thing first. So Reprisal, 20 for each damage count on this Pokemon. I mean, that would normally be good if stage 2 Pokemon just didn't get like one shot by everything in the format. So that doesn't seem great. But let's check out Torracat. Though I feel like if we're having to copy Torracat's attacks, we're in kind of a bad spot. So Gritty Claw is 40. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is full HP, it will be knocked out by damage from an attack. It is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10. Okay, so this is kind of like a Focus Sash built right into your Incineroar. But guys, this seems really clunky. I'm not gonna lie to you, because it wouldn't be that bad if this attack was on Litten, because we'd be rare candying from Litten into Incineroar. But now we have to like physically evolve through 2 different 1 prize Pokemon that somehow have to not get one shot in the meantime. So yeah, this seems pretty bad. If I'm going to play a stage 2 fire Pokemon, guys, I think I would just rather play the Leonzard or like the Sword and Shield Cinderace or something like that. So this is cool. like, it's a fun evolution line. It's mechanically interesting. But yeah, it's just not that great for today's game. All right, so next we have VSTAR via another early reveal from the set, though I do completely forget what this card does. See, Ancient Guidance, search your deck for up to 2 cards that evolve from item cards with fossil in their name, put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Okay, now that's actually kind of cool. I can get on board with that, because you know, the big issue with these fossil cards is that they are inherently a little bit clunky. You can't like quick ball for an unidentified fossil and put it on your bench. You have to do other weird things to get them into play. So the fact that we can, like, if we don't have an unidentified fossil, we can quick ball for instead VSTAR V, attach for turn, and get this Pokemon into play instead. So that's kind of neat. I'm just thinking, like, what fossil Pokemon do we want to play? I know there's a Rampardos that does like 240, and it has some bad stipulation to the attack. I forget. Let's see. All right, so like I said, we did have a Rampardos. I did remember this one. 240 buff. Your opponent has 3 or fewer cards in hand. This attack is nothing. So that's not great, because they can play around that Pokemon. Then I'm pretty sure there's also Bastiodon as well that came out. So let's check this thing. So your Pokemon take 30 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V. That's actually, like, not that horrible either, though that, I guess, assumes we're attacking with VSTAR. I guess maybe there's a world where you could play, like, VSTAR Bastiodon and try to make something happen. But maybe there's some other fossil Pokemon in the set we haven't seen just yet. But right now, the options for VSTAR aren't looking the best right now. All right, so we have Glalie and Frostlass. These were pretty fresh in my mind as well. We just saw these get revealed. So Glalie has the attack for 4 colorless energy, does 130, and if you play the new supporter card called Candace during your hand, or during your turn, this does 130 more damage. So Candace, it's in a supporter. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, you get any number of water Pokemon or energy, put them into your hand. I don't think it's a great supporter card, and the fact that we have to play that for our turn and power this thing up with a massive 4 energy cost isn't that enticing. Though I know we can just go like Choice Belt. Now we can knock out Pokemon VSTAR. That's pretty cool with a Radiant Hawlucha. At that point, you can then knock out Pokemon VMAX. So there are like cool things going for this Glalie, but to need 4 energy is like insane. I feel like you would almost have to play the other Frostlass with this thing, or Frost Moth, just to accelerate energy to this. Otherwise, this is just going to be really insane to power up. But then Frostlass also has a similar attack, if I remember correctly. Frost Jail, if you put Candace from hand during this turn, does 90 more, and your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So definitely a much more energy efficient attack. But I mean, paralysis right now is not the best status condition, since switching cards are everywhere right now. 110 is a decent number. This will allow us to deal with like single prize Pokemon like Cramorant, but we are going to have to like 3-shot like Pokemon VSTAR. I mean, Choice Belt will fix your math, I guess. So you're doing 110 plus a belt, 140. Okay, so I mean, that's actually like not the worst thing in the world. I don't know how you're beating single prize decks like Regi or the Lost Box decks, but you know what? Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you have to have played Candace during your turn. That's where I lose interest in this card. So probably just going to be a pass for me. Okay, so next we have Relicanth. I'm assuming we're going to have some more fossil support here. So we have Fossil Search. Okay, yeah. Shuffle up to 4 of any combination of unidentified fossil and rare fossil from your discard pile into your deck. Oh, I actually did forget about rare fossil. Let's check out VSTAR yet again here. So 2 cards that evolve from... Okay, so we actually can evolve Pokemon that who evolve from rare fossils as well. That actually might change things. Let's see what we have in the format still for those. All right, so one of the Pokemon we have is Arctozolt, which actually is pretty cool. Unlike things like Rampardos or Bastiodon, we don't have to evolve again. We can actually just search this thing out immediately with VSTAR, which doesn't seem too bad. And the ability on Arctozolt is actually kind of good if we can swarm a bunch of these into play, because if we have, let's say, 4 of these, every time your opponent attaches an energy, they take 8 damage counters at that point. That's actually pretty cool. I think there's actually another annoying Pokemon. Is it Arctovish? Let me see. Okay, Arctovish is trash. Is it... I think it's Dracovish. Yes, there we go, Dracovish. So again, this thing is actually kind of cool because we can just immediately get into play with Omastar. We don't have to evolve again, like I mentioned, with cards like Kabutops, Rampardos, etc. But yeah, but this thing, as long as it's in your active, your opponent can't play any Pokemon from hand to evolve their Pokemon. That's actually pretty bad. So Omastar looking a little bit better now that we know about the Arctozolt, for example, but still probably nothing too special. But let's get back to our Relicanth. So I'm actually still not that crazy about this attack. I really wish it was like, it gave you like an either or sort of thing, like the old, was it Research Records? Is that right? Or that might be the name of the card. But I wish it let us get up to 4 of these onto our bench or out of discard into our deck. That would be much, much better. I would love that a lot. But just getting these back into our deck doesn't seem that impactful. I mean, the fossils don't really have recovery options, so anything they do get is kind of better than nothing at this point. Okay, so next up we have Keldeo. Again, we need to sort of remember all of these as we're going through this set, just because of the Virizion that we saw. But let's see, has the attack 4 is 1 for water 2 colors. If you have, of course, all of the other Musketeer trio, I think is what they're called, Pokemon on your bench, does 170 more. So it's actually not impossible to get up and running. So with either a Frostlass or like a Raihan and a Twin Energy or something like that, we can do 220, which isn't that bad. You know, if you get in an early attack with the Virizion, you can come in with this guy and clean things up. But it's just okay. I definitely think Cobalion and Terrakion need to be a good bit better for us to really consider playing this hypothetical deck. Okay, next we have a new Raichu, and we actually do need to come back to Pikachu because all of these Pokemon, or Pikachu does tie him to with a couple of different Pokemon here. But let's take a look at the Raichu. So Raichu here, new stage 1, Ambushing Spark, 40. If your opponent has used their V-Star power during this game, does 100 more damage. Okay, so this is just like a Palkia killer for like Zoroark Toolbox, I feel like. Just because it attacks for a single energy, and if your opponent has used Star Portal, which they usually will by like the second or third turn of the game, you can just transform into Raichu, knock out a Palkia, and you're feeling pretty good. So that seems cool. I don't think you're ever really building around this Raichu. Like, I know there's another one that exists as well that has a similar attack where it's like, if they use their V-Star power already, it does 220, I think. I forget the exact amount of damage, but yeah, this seems cool for the Zoroark Toolbox. Again, just not sure what else really beyond that, but kind of a cool Raichu. But the Pikachu, let's go back, take a look at this thing. So all of the little Pika clones all have attacks that tie in together. I do remember we saw these in the first video I made about Paradigm Trigger. So with Pikachu, it says if your Dedenne used Dede Short during your last turn, this attack does 180 more damage. So 200 for 1 is pretty good, but of course the big catch is you have to use all these attacks in a very specific order. So let's go ahead and check out the Dedenne real quick, just while we're on the topic of it. Pretty sure it's under Psychic, right? Yeah, so Dede Short here. 60, you can only use this attack if Togedemaru used Togedash during your last turn. The defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Okay, so let's check out Togedemaru. So, Togedash, flip a coin of heads. If this Pokemon is knocked out during your opponent's next turn, your opponent can't take any prize cards for it. Now, I do believe there is another Pika clone somewhere in here, because I could have sworn there was a fourth one. But the Pikachu is definitely the heaviest hitting attacker out of all of them. But yeah, this is a cool idea, but the big issue is you have to keep looping these attacks in a very specific order. Togedash, at least, is kind of cool. It can prevent your opponent from getting a prize. So, you know, we take those. But, you know, the rest of it seems kind of gimmicky. This will be probably just like a fun deck for PTCGO, but I'm not expecting a whole lot really beyond that, if I'm being honest, guys. But, you know, feel free to let me know your thoughts on that. I know 200 for 1 is pretty enticing on just like a lovable, quick ball, searchable one prizer like this, but yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in this. All right, so next up we have Luxray. This is another card I did a short video on recently, and has a very familiar ability for anyone who's been playing since the XY era. But if this Pokemon is in your opening hand when you start the game, you can put it face down as your active Pokemon. So that means, yes, even if you don't open with a basic, you can still just put your Luxray down and start the game with that. So it's like the old Talonflame back from Steam Siege, which actually was a pretty good card in a couple of Greninja lists they did decide to play that to give their deck a good opener while they're setting up. Before we get to the actual viability, let's check out the attack here as well. Colorist is 50. Search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Okay, but the big question is, does this have a similar partner to Talonflame? Because Talonflame had the Greninja deck. Does Luxray really have anything you want to pair it with? Now, you always could just play this as just a normal Luxray deck, but I don't think this 50 damage is going to be enough to carry you through the game. But where I think this card could potentially shine is with decks with deck ideas that naturally lend themselves to you starting Luxray more frequently than not. So think of things like the different fossil Pokemon. That's a good example of cards we've been talking about in this video. You can't start the game with an unidentified fossil since it is just an item. But if we're playing Luxray, you have pretty high odds of starting with this thing since you have essentially 4 basics in your deck that you can't open with. So that's cool. We could also see this be used with V Unions for a very similar reason. Again, you can't start with V Unions, so you can, set up your Luxray, search your deck for maybe a couple of Ultra Balls or whatever you might need, or maybe like an Adventurer's Discovery or something like that to find your V Union pieces. And likewise with the fossil decks, you can actually just search for the fossils with this attack. So, but beyond that, I mean, those are definitely very gimmicky ideas. Is there anything beyond that we want to use Luxray with? Honestly, I'm not sure, guys. I would have to really comb through the card pool very aggressively. This will be a card I'm sure I'll have more concrete thoughts on once we get to my Silver Tempest set review, in the next month or so. But yeah, for right now, I like the card. I think it's cool we have an effect like this. I'm a sucker for stage 2 Pokemon, and being able to get stage 2s into play even quicker is something I'm definitely on board with. So we'll have to see how Luxray is going to do, but it's definitely a card I want to have my eye on going forward. Okay, so next up we have Regieleki VMAX. So let's check out the basic Regieleki first. Do love the art on this thing. I think it looks pretty good. Not gonna lie. The Switch Bolt 30, switch with one of your bench Pokemon. That's cool. And then 100 during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon takes 100 less damage from attacks. It's actually not too bad since, like, if you are in an unfortunate situation where you do have to attack with Regieleki, being able to have a minus 100 could be good to buy you some time until you can evolve into your VMAX. And speaking of our VMAX, we finally have a Regieleki with 0 retreat. That's something the community has been, I think, largely whining about for the longest time. It's a very fast Pokemon in the games, and they've always had like kind of clunkier retreat costs. But I've never really been sure, do they base the retreat cost on speed in the video games, or is it weight, or a combination of the two? Because if the Pokemon's still like really heavy, I could see why Regieleki was getting like these chunky retreat costs. But either way, that's a side tangent. Feel free to let me know in the comment section your thoughts on that. But either way, does have free retreat, which we do need to point out, which of course is always welcome. But the ability says the attacks of your basic lightning Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. And then its attack of its own for a lightning and 2 colorist is 220. And during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. So it is a little bit unfortunate this doesn't stack with itself, because 220 is, you're going to knock out Palkias, that's cool, but you're a pretty far away from one-shotting other V-Stars and VMAX and stuff like that. But in terms of basic lightning Pokemon, I know we have Zeraora V. I think Vikavolt V is probably going to be the most notable one, because Vikavolt V, pretty cool card, but the damage output is a little bit low. And Regieleki VMAX will allow you a way to beef up that item locking attack. Doing 80 instead of 50 definitely is going to be welcome. So if you have a couple of these plus a choice belt, you can actually maybe start 2-shotting things. That's a pretty enticing offer, I think. What else beyond that? Again, guys, this is another one of those cards I might just have to dig through the card pool a little bit to really have a concrete idea of what I think about this, but has free retreat, so that's another good thing with Vikavolt in particular too, because you want to be able to retreat into your Vikavolt. You don't want stuff stuck in the active, preventing you from locking your opponent. But yeah, it seems okay. I can't really say a whole lot more than that. All right, so we have Unknown V and V-Star. These were another couple of early reveals, and Unknown V actually was kind of interesting as well. If you have only one prize card left when using this attack, you just win the game. So it's kind of like the Slowbro, like you can think of it that way, that we have in the format back from the Pokemon Go set. This is a little bit worse because it is a 3 energy attack cost, but it is a basic Pokemon, so that is going to be the trade-off here. Or Slowbro, your opponent has 1 prize left. I forget, but either way, it's an okay attack. It has a more interesting attack than most of the V-Star and VMAX pre-evolutions. And then Unknown V-Star, let's check out this thing. So it has Tri-Power here for a Psychic Energy, flip 3 coins, does 70 for each heads. So I really don't want to build around a coin flip Pokemon. I just don't. But I will say on average, you are hitting 140 for just a single energy. So that's actually kind of enticing. That is a decent 2-shotting number. And who knows, maybe you can even play things like Cheryl and stuff with this card as well. You just do that nice 140 number turn after turn and just share off and reattach an energy and keep going. You also can choose to play things like the Horror Psychic Energy. We still have that in format as well. So between that and Choice Belt, you actually can creep that damage up kind of high. And, you know, if you are fortunate enough to flip all 3 heads, you know, you can start to push that damage output, you know, closer to the range to knock out basic Pokemon V. So that's something, but I feel like you're just trying to go for a 2-shot, just try to tank and not let your Unknown go down. I think that's the idea. And then it's V-Star Power. Until this Pokemon leaves play, gains an ability that has the effect all of your opponent's Pokemon's weakness is now Psychic. The amount of weakness doesn't change. And of course, you can't use more than 1 V-Star Power in a game. So I have a big issue with this V-Star Power though, because this is very similar to Aerodactyl, where like you're really not attacking and doing damage until turn 3. And there is a chance where turn 2, you get this thing powered up, you use this V-Star power, and then your opponent pulls off some crazy play to knock out your Unknown V-Star. Like let's say you're going against Kyurem VMAX, that would be an easy example here. They knock out your Unknown. Now this ability goes away because it just left play, and you're still not doing damage yet. So I think this V-Star power, I think it should have been an ability more than likely. But maybe you just ignore this thing unless your opponent has like a slow start. And again, you just try to tank with Tri-Power here. Like maybe you play Radiant Gardevoir plus Big Charm to make sure these things can stay alive a little bit, and just play cards like Cheryl and call it a day. I think that's where we're at with this thing. But I really don't want to build around an attack that is inherently inconsistent. I might pass on Unknown V-Star, but it's an interesting card, and I'll probably still experiment with it a little bit though. Okay, we have a new Metachamp up next and a new Metatite. Yeah, I do remember this Metatite actually being kind of good. So it has a cool ability. As long as it's on your bench, prevent all damage done to it by attacks. So this is cool. This means you might not need to run Manaphy in whatever deck you're playing Metachamp in. So this will protect you against things like Radiant Greninja, of course. But this thing is really, again, only as good as the quality of Metachamps that we have. And I don't remember this thing being that good. So it says if you have exactly 4 cards in hand, this Pokemon's attacks cost 3 cards less. Okay, that's actually not too bad to make happen. And then Eager Kick for 80, or hopefully 0 energy, does 80 plus 90 more if your opponent has a Pokemon VMAX in play. I'm not too sold on this thing. Like, more likely, if we ever were to play something like this, it would be as a Pokemon in like a Zoroark toolbox deck. Just because Weird Ear already exists, but it's kind of awkward to be able to scale your damage up to knock out some of the psychic weak Pokemon that exist, like the different Urshifus. This is definitely a much easier way at taking those one-shots. You just have to not match hand sizes, but you just have to get your hand size down to 4, which I don't think is going to be that difficult. Now, big issue, I think, another big issue, I guess, facing this card is that psychic weak Pokemon just really aren't that popular right now. Like the Urshifus have almost been entirely shut out of the current metagame. So I'm not sure the next time you're actually going to be able to use this. But yeah, if this card had been printed like a year ago, would be much better, I think. But as it stands right now, you know, it's decent, I think, for what it's trying to do. It's just not really being printed in the right metagame. But we haven't got to fighting Pokemon just yet, so maybe there's something in this set that will, you know, prompt the use for this again. But yeah, probably not going to see too much play as it stands. Okay, we have kind of a cool attack on Sigilyph here. For just a colorless energy, you search your deck for a basic, put it on your bench. But if your opponent's active as a Pokemon V, you may instead search your deck for 5 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So I love this attack. This is the exact sort of energy I want to see. I want to see stuff that rewards you for playing, well, I shouldn't say single prize Pokemon, because you technically can search your deck for multi-prizers with this, but this definitely seems like it's geared towards like setup heavy evolution single prize decks. That being said, I still don't think this attack will see much play. If this was like a 0 energy attack, you know, I'd probably be on board. But we do have to find a way to get this into the active spot, which can be tough. And really after turn 1, we don't want to use this attack anymore. So depending on what, like, I guess if the partner Pokemon you're trying to play this with has a free retreat, yeah, maybe you would just play this. But otherwise, I think we'll probably have to pass on this and just play cards like Quick Ball or Battle VIP Pass. All right, so next up we have Reuniclus, which actually does have some pretty sick art. I love this. Oh, but this is actually one of my favorite artists in the TCG, so that makes sense. But let's check this thing out. 120 HP, so as always, a little bit on the weaker side for Reuniclus. But its ability says if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put it into your hand instead of the discard pile. But of course, you do still discard all attached cards. That is nice. I do like that, because one of the big issues with stage 2s and evolutions is just recycling them turn after turn. And so this means, you know, this just cuts that sort of out of the equation for you. So I do like that. But this attack, I can already tell, 2 colors and 60 already has me sort of worried here. 2 colors for 60, but then you choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, put 3 damage counters on each of them. Yeah, that's just nowhere near enough damage. Like, yeah, we can play Choice Belt, I guess. So Choice Belt 90, 30, 30 is a bit better for a single twin energy. Oh, and God forbid you ever have to attach a double turbo, because then you're doing 40 and then 30, 30. The only thing I can really think to pair this with is maybe like the Lunala from Celebrations that doubles your damage counters. So I definitely could see a world where, like, you go like most of the game, like 3/4 of the way through the game, just setting up a ton of damage on your opponent's field, and then eventually coming in with a Lunala at the end, since it also attacks for just a single twin or double turbo, and then doubling all your damage counters and just winning. So that seems like the most attractive thing to me, but we also have a lot of decks playing Scoop Up Net right now, so a lot of times you're going to do this damage, and then your opponent's just going to get rid of it off the field. Cool ability, just the attack is a little bit underpowered, unfortunately. Alrighty, so we do have Hisuian Arcanine V. So as often as you like, during your turn, you may move a fighting energy from one of your Pokemon to this Pokemon, and then for 4 colorless energy is 90 plus 30 for each fighting energy attached to this Pokemon. There are some cool things going on with this card, but kind of the theme of the set is nothing is sort of as good as I really want it to be here, and Arcanine is definitely no exception. So there's definitely ways to get this thing powered up. So we of course still have B in the format, though I probably wouldn't play that. That would not be my go-to way to play this card. I think some of the other options we have are going to be like the Galarian Zapdos, where whenever you bench it, you can attach 2 fighting from hand to it. So you can do that, move the energy right over to Arcanine. We also have the Lucario still in format that accelerates fighting energy to itself. So there are ways to get this fighting energy into play, but we need a ton of energy if we want to take any one-shots. Like, let's see, the base damage is, what, 90, 120, 50, 80, 210. So we would need, what, 6 energy plus a belt if we want to one-shot like a V-Star? That seems really bad. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with this card. Maybe there's something I'm missing, or maybe there's something else we'll see in the set that makes Arcanine a little bit better. But yeah, we just need way too much energy to do a meaningful amount of damage with this. Okay, speaking of fighting energy acceleration, we do have a Claydol here, so maybe this is our partner for our Hisuian Arcanine. Once during your turn, if you have no supporters in your discard, you may attach a fighting energy from your discard to one of your Pokemon. So I guess that's how we're going to power up Arcanine, right? We have we're going to play no supporters whatsoever and get a single energy with Claydol. Yeah, this seems pretty bad. The no supporters thing, like, I guess it's possible to build your deck in a way that plays no supporters. Like, you can play like 4 Pokestop plus 4 trekking shoes, Cramomatics, like stuff like that. There's things like Barrel as well. So I do think you actually probably can build around not having supporters, but that's a lot of work for just a single fighting energy. Like, by comparison, if we stack this up next to Flaffy, like, yeah, Flaffy has to attach only to bench Pokemon, but other than that, it's the same ability. You can play supporters, which are very important cards. So this seems pretty bad. I don't think this is fixing our Hisuian Arcanine's issues that it has. Okay, so we do have a couple of fossil Pokemon to take a look at. So of course we do need to remember Amistar, keep that in the back of our mind. We have our Maldo. Says Reaper Claw, if your opponent's active has 100 HP or less, it is knocked out. I mean, it's okay. Like, I guess we can knock out Sableye and Comfies, but doesn't seem that great. Then its attack, pretty awful. Okay, now Aearth actually probably the better of the two Pokemon, surprisingly. For just a single twin or double turbo energy, you can discard unidentified fossil from your hand and do 150. Okay, much better than Armaldo, I would think. Or I guess if you're not one-shotting anything, if you evolve into Armaldo, maybe there's a world where you follow things up with this attack. I don't know, but Anorith definitely seems like the better of the two Pokemon. Okay, next up we have another one of these Musketeer trio Pokemon. We got Terrakion. So 2 fighting and a colorist does 130, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. You can't use this attack if any of your Pokemon use Cavern Tackle during your last turn. I mean, this is a pretty good effect, just straight up preventing all damage done to it, but powering this thing up definitely could be an issue. That's really the one thing we haven't figured out for this whole theoretical Musketeer trio deck that we've seen. So we might need maybe the Lost Engine plus Mirage Gates. That definitely seems like the most likely way to power up multiple different types of energy like this. But outside of that, I don't know how you're really getting this Terrakion up and running. Or maybe you're not. Maybe it's just going to sit on our bench. But yeah, we'll have to take a look at Cobalion here in just a minute and see how maybe that fits, or maybe how that might complete this puzzle we're trying to figure out for this deck. But if we can get this powered up, seems like a decent attack for this hypothetical deck. Okay, so next we have a Lycanroc that's doing 240. Okay, that's definitely catching my interest a little bit here, but it's 240 minus 80 for each energy attached to your opponent's active. Oh, come on, bro. What are you doing to me? Even 240 is not enough, as it stands. Even with Choice Belt, you're not knocking out Palkia, you're not knocking out Giratina, and your opponents probably have 2 energy on them. Let's be real. I guess we could try to play Crushing Hammers and stuff like that, but again, even if we're maxing out our damage with Choice Belt, we would still need a Zigzagoon or something else to fix our math. So probably not too great, unfortunately. We do have a Stonjourner up next. So 1 for 20. And okay, for fighting 2 colors does 60. And yet again, if we don't have any supporters in our discard, this is 130 more damage. So it definitely looks like they're trying to push some sort of archetype using the Claydol. This has me more intrigued than the Arcanine does, just because this is a single prizer. Attacks for a much more manageable attack cost. So with 1 Claydol and a Twin Energy, you can do 190, which actually is not a bad number, to be honest. 130 means you don't get one shot by Cramorant either, which is definitely a selling point. And I guess you can just play things like Radiant. I feel like Radiant Venusaur is probably your Pokemon of choice, or maybe even Radiant Greninja. I think either one makes sense because Radiant Greninja can draw cards and discard energy for your Claydol, but Venusaur, you can get value out of that even when you don't have energy in hand. So between those Pokestop and Trekking Shoes and maybe a barrel, this might work as a deck. We'll have to see. I'm curious to try it out, but not being able to play cards like Boss, Research, etc. is definitely going to be an issue, but I think it's worth experimenting with, if nothing else. All right, so next we have Skuntankvi, another card I did a short video on earlier in the week, or about a week ago now, I think. But for 2 colors energy, does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, but if they were treated on the last turn, it does 120 instead. So kind of cool, I guess, if you're going against a Lost Box deck or something like that does retreat a lot, you can do 120. I think overall though, guys, this is kind of gimmicky. A lot of Pokemon aren't even retreating to the bench. They're playing cards like Switch. They're playing cards like Scoop Up Net. And a lot of the time, this is just going to be just 30 at this point. If we were going to play this, we would probably be playing in a deck that already is attacking for double turbo energy. Arceus decks come to mind for me just because they are, they're already not taking one-hit KOs. They are largely having to 2-shot things. And if your opponent does retreat, Skuntank can come in for, again, just a single double turbo energy and finish off said Pokemon. That's probably the most likely home that I can see, but I don't really have a whole lot of faith in this card. Okay, and I'm not going crazy. I did remember there was another one of these Pika clones in the set. So Morpeko here, for a lightning energy, you can use this attack only if your Dedenne used Dede Short during your last turn. This attack does 60 each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this is kind of like an alternate option if you don't want to attack with Pikachu. Instead, after you go Togedemaru Dedenne, you can choose to pivot into this guy instead. The 60 spread is pretty good, but a lot of decks are playing Manaphy right now, unfortunately. So you will need something like a canceling clone, or you are going to have to pick off Manaphy in advance. If they don't have the Manaphy down, this is actually pretty good, and it does pair nicely with the Pikachu as well, because Pikachu can hit for 200. So between that having a belt, or this having a belt, or telescopic sight, the math actually works out pretty well against like multi-prize Pokemon. So just another option in your hypothetical Pika clone deck. But again, guys, you do have to tackle these Pokemon in a very specific order, and that's where I do lose a little bit of interest here. Okay, next up we have Cobalion, the final of the Musketeer Trio, Quadrio, or Quartet, I should say, once we count Keldeo. But this thing ability says, attacks from your basic Pokemon do 30 more to your opponent's active dark Pokemon. Okay, I mean, I guess we can do more against Crobat or Drapion V if your opponent starts it, but yeah, dark Pokemon, like, it's not like Eternatus is popular. I think largely this isn't going to make too much of a difference most of the time. But then it's attack for 2 colors, energy is 30. Choose up 2 of your bench Pokemon. For each of them, search your deck for a basic energy and attach it to that Pokemon. Okay, so I guess this is how we are attempting to power up our board a little bit. Because of course, Keldeo needs an energy, a water energy plus twin energy. Terrakion is still a little bit more of an issue though, because it does need 2 fighting energy. If Terrakion was like 1 fighting and 2 colorless, we would still be in business, but yeah, I really wish this was like choose 2 Pokemon, choose 2 energy for each of those. That would be much better. As it stands right now, I still feel like we would need some sort of other energy acceleration in the deck. Again, probably things like Raihan or the Lost Engine definitely seem like the most likely options. But I guess the big question is, like, now that we know what all these cards do, are we even going to play them? I want to say no. Like, Virizian's pretty good at putting on pressure, knocking out like low HP Pokemon, but none of these Pokemon really do great when it comes to taking like big knockouts. Keldeo is definitely the heaviest hitting of the Pokemon, but even that can't really take one-shots on like any multi-prizers. And I feel like this deck just gets bodied by like the Lost Box variants out there. So yeah, I'm probably going to pass on all of these, I think. But I will say, in their defense, I also thought the Regi deck was going to be trash. I didn't think that was going to be a real deck. So maybe I'll be proven wrong. But I do think these lack the raw damage output that at least the Regis offer up. All right, so before we take a look at the other Dragon Pokemon that are also in the set, we need to look at Regidrago VSTAR first, because this is definitely going to be the most relevant out of all these Pokemon that we're taking a look at. But before we get to the VSTAR, let's check out the base form here. And actually pretty cool art on this guy. I actually do like the way that looks. But let's see, for colorless, discard top 3 cards of your deck, attach all energy cards, discard it in this way to this Pokemon. Okay, so kind of like the old, what is it, Rayquaza EX, I think it was, back from Dragons Exalted. But typically you would never use that attack. You're in a very bad spot if you ever found yourself having to use that. Now I do wish this was like, attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like, because a lot of times if we're attacking with this guy, it's just going to get knocked out on the next turn. So I would have liked the flexibility to attach them elsewhere. Other attack for 2 grass and fire, 130, does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Nothing too special, but of course the VSTAR is going to be the star of the show here. So Regidrago has that same attack cost again, 2 grass and a colorless, or 2 grass and a fire, I'm sorry. It says choose the attack of a dragon type Pokemon in your discard pile and use it as this attack. So it's important to point out, we actually don't need the correct attack cost for this. So for some of those giant annoying attacks like on the Garchomp V or the Flygon V that are otherwise kind of decent, we now can use that, or we can use those attacks a little bit more easily. And now we actually can use them on a Pokemon that has a little bit more tankability and isn't just going to be immediately return one-shotted. And its VSTAR power says, once during your turn, you may discard 7 cards from the top of your deck, then choose up to 2 cards from your discard pile, reveal them, put them into your hand. It's kind of like a weird Professor's Research sort of thing, or kind of like Hapu, or a card like Sage's Training. But one thing that's nice is you can get 2 cards that weren't discarded from the top 7, so like 2 cards that were already in there. I'm not sure how often I'm using this, just because a blind discard 7 that's a little bit risky, I'm not gonna lie. Either way, I think the attack is definitely gonna be the focal point here. But the big issue for this, even though we can copy the attacks of like any dragon Pokemon we want, the attack cost is super bad. Like, I guess we can use Gardenia if we really want to, but Gardenia hasn't been good up until this point, and there's plenty of other good grass attacking Pokemon that could use it. That leads me to believe maybe we're playing this in some sort of Lost Box deck, or like using the Lost Engine and Mirage Gates to get powered up, or maybe using Arceus. Those really seem like probably the most likely candidates. Arceus doesn't even seem that bad to me, just because I don't think we care if we're using this V-Star power on Regidrago. We care more about the attack, and Starbirth can, you know, help us pitch away the exact Pokemon that we want to. And this gives your Arceus deck like a big toolbox of attackers to potentially use. So that seems like probably the most attractive way to play this. But in terms of the attacks we want to copy, I know there's Dragonite V that hits for 250. So with the Choice Belt, you know, you're taking one-shots there. But let's take a look at some of the other Dragon Pokemon in this set at the very least. See if there's anything else that we could pair with this. Yeah, Dragonite, this is one of the ones that they seem to be pushing. So Dragonite here has the second attack. It's basically just Trinity Nova from Arceus. So hits for 180, then search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards, attach them to your Pokemon any way that you like. So this is fine. My big issue though is I feel like we almost need Arceus to get set up. And once you do that, Dragonite's not so great at that point. But I guess if we're playing maybe like a Lost Engine version of the deck, Dragonite does become a little bit better since we don't have Trinity Nova. So still a card I think that could be worth including in some sort of Regidrago deck. Though we do also have Noivern, my homie, one of my favorite Pokemon. He normally does not get the best cards, and this one doesn't look to be much better. Though we can do 70 and draw until we have 7 in hand. Oh, and this first attack is actually like kind of interesting. Choose one of your opponent's Radiant Pokemon. That Pokemon is knocked out. I mean, if they were foolish enough to bench Radiant Zard in advance, like, I guess we could do that. Also, I guess just getting rid of their Greninja isn't the worst thing in the world, but more than likely if we're attacking with Regidrago, we would prefer to be taking big one-shots on multi-prizers. But yeah, I think it's just kind of situation. I don't think we're probably playing this in Regidrago, but I could be wrong, guys. But again, Regidrago, I think this is probably the best attacker we've seen so far in this set, unless I'm forgetting something. And even this isn't like super broken. Like, I don't think this is going to be the next Palkia or the next Arceus, but you know, it's kind of like a V-Star, Mewtwo, and Mew-GX, but of course we are limited to just Dragon Pokemon, and this thing does have a pretty clunky attack cost, so definitely some reservations about this card, but does have some potential. All right, next up we have the main mascot of the set. We have Lugia VSTAR. So Lugia V, it's nothing special here, but does have an attack. You can discard a card from your hand and draw 3, so not that bad if we are forced to start with this thing. But Lugia VSTAR, much more interesting. Its only attack, 4 colorless energy, does 220, and you may discard a stadium in play. Kind of a bad energy to damage ratio, but luckily the V-Star power is actually pretty solid. You choose up to 2 colorless Pokemon in your discard pile, except for Pokemon with a rule box, and put them onto your bench. So we can get things like Burrell and get those set up a little bit easier, but there is a new Archeops, which we will get to in a little bit here. I guess we'll scroll down to it right now. But Archeops here has this ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 special energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. So obviously we want to toss away these different Archeops cards and then get them into play with the V-Star power on our Lugia. And then this can actually power up a Lugia in a single turn. And there's actually a lot of different flexibility in terms of how you want to choose to power it up. Like, obviously you can just grab 2 double turbo energies and start hitting for what, 180, and just go for that nice 2-shot. But if we have 2 Archeops in play, we could even grab like 4 powerful colorless energy between both of them and have Lugia just like one-shotting anything in its path. Because of this ability, we can also abuse things like Cheryl as well. So we can just Cheryl, discard all of the energy, and then search our deck for more energy and reattach it. We also have, was it V-Guard energy? That's also going to be in Silver Tempest. That gives you a -30 reduction against Pokemon V attacks. That's actually pretty relevant for a number of different matchups. Definitely we'll have to watch out for lightning Pokemon with this thing, but there's enough different special energies running around in the format to where I think Lugia does have a little bit of potential. The big issue though, of course, is just getting Archeops into play as soon as turn 2. If you're whiffing this turn 2 attack and V-Star power, I think this card is going to feel much, much worse. So I think that's probably what this card's success will boil down to. Can you consistently hit the Archeops into your discard pile. If so, you'll do well. If not, you're probably going to get bodied. Okay, so getting into our trainers, we have Quadstone, which is, I think, a very gimmicky card. So we can play 4 of these at the same time. If we use 1, heal 10 from your active, but if you use 4, heal all damage from each of your Pokemon. So a really insane healing effect, but it does come at a pretty hefty cost here. You do have to have all 4 in your hand. You can't prize any of these cards, otherwise they're pretty much useless. Healing 10 is pretty worthless most of the time, at least, but we do have a couple ways at searching these out. I think most notably we have the Inteleon engine. So if you go like Inteleon, scoop up that Inteleon, then you can get all 4 of these out of your deck, get a giant healing effect. But guys, that's 4 spots you have to devote to this. I would almost rather play Cheryl, like especially if we think of the decks that Inteleon is in, it's usually Palkia. That's the big one, at least. And Palkia is already in a spot where they can afford to Cheryl, then use their V-Star power and get all the energy back. And Cheryl takes up 1 spot as opposed to 4. So I think this card seems pretty gimmicky. Like, yeah, I know if we prize any, we can use Peonia, search them out of there, but I'm not a big fan of this. I think for me to have contemplated using these, I think we would have needed a play 2 effect and a play 3 effect. Because right now, playing 1 effectively does nothing. Like let's be real, guys. Probably going to pass on this one. Alright guys, but next up we have what is going to be, I think, really the only new mechanic we're going to see in Silver Tempest. We're going to be getting these new Pokemon tool cards that add V-Star powers to Pokemon. So the first one here, it says Earthen Sealstone. So the Pokemon V this card is attached to can use this V-Star power for 3 energy, put damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon V until they each have 100 HP remaining. So I've got to say, I definitely think this is the weaker of the 2 that we're getting in this set. But I do like this whole concept for these cards. I especially think this could be good in like with old VMAXs that of course never had V-Star powers, or like basic Pokemon V. So think of something like a Zacian V. You know, cards like that were previously good that maybe have been shut out of the, you know, the recent formats that we've seen since V-Stars. These sort of cards could allow them a way to come back and be relevant once again. In terms of this particular one, putting everything down to 100 isn't bad necessarily, but a lot of these decks don't have like a full field of Pokemon V. Like Mew and maybe Kyurem are going to be like the only real exceptions. But think of a deck like Palkia or Giratina or even Arceus. A lot of times they're only going to have like 2, maybe 3 Pokemon max that are Pokemon Vs in play, and you're not going to get like a ton of value out of this. This particular card would need to be played with something that is a largely 2-shot oriented Pokemon V or VMAX that does not have a V-Star power and can get powered up to use this attack for 3 colorless energy. So again, I'll have to dig through the card pool a little bit probably once we get closer to Silver Tempest. Like in my full set review, I'm sure I'll have some more concrete ideas. But yeah, this is definitely not the one I am more excited about. So the other one we have Forest Sealstone, and there's already been a lot of talk about this one here. So again, same thing, if it's attached to a Pokemon V, they can use this V-Star power, and this one says you may search your deck for any one card, put it into your hand. So yes, it's like literally half as good as Starbirth on Arceus V-Star, but of course, we can play this with any deck. It doesn't have to be Arceus V-Star. And the big one I think a lot of people, rightfully so, have been talking about is with Mew VMAX. Like Mew is already so consistent, and it is very combo reliant, and this is just another way to make your deck more consistent. Like just slap this on a bench Genesect V, and whenever you need that like boss's orders to take a KO or that last power tablets, well guess what? You have this to bail you out in case you whiff what you need via your abilities and your supportive return. So that definitely seems like the best deck currently I can think of with this thing. But again, we technically can use this with other decks like Zacians or Shadow Riders and some of these other previous decks that used to be good. But yeah, this seems absolutely insane in Mew VMAX. But yeah, this is definitely the better of the 2. And I am curious to see if we are going to get any more of these before the Scarlet and Violet cards come out, because I do like these cards conceptually. It would just be nice to get maybe 1 or 2 more that are a little bit more viable than this one, at least. Just so we have some to pick from other than just this Forest Sealstone. But definitely like this card. Again, if nothing else, I would expect this as absolutely a one of in Mew VMAX decks. So next we have Worker. This is another one of these draw 3 supporter cards. So this one's draw 3, but then you discard a Stadium in play as well. So, I mean, yeah, this is better than Hop, but I don't know if the Stadium discard is enough to make me actually want to play this thing. Like, I guess you could play this as like a way of getting rid of things like Path to the Peak or Lost City. You know, some of these annoying stadiums that frequently do come down. But yeah, like this isn't a bad card, but I still don't know a deck I would really want this in, if I'm being honest. Maybe Mew VMAX, like just as a single one of, because Mew VMAX, or at least the double turbo version of the deck, plays a suite of like, you know, 3-ish draw supporters, like a couple Marnies, like Avery or 2. So maybe this could replace one of those cards. Since of course Path to the Peak is such a big deal for Mew VMAX decks. So that's an option, but beyond that, I don't really, at least off the top of my head, I can't see any big reason to play this one. Okay, so next up we have Brandon. It says you can only play this card if it's the last card in your hand, and then draw a card for each bench Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's. So in theory, if both players have a full bench, you can just draw 10, which is a ton of cards. Like that is a lot, but the fact this has to be your last card in hand is definitely, yeah, that's a big ask. Not every deck can play their hand down to 0 like that. You know what, guys? I think I'll just take my chances, play Professor's Research. You get 3 less cards, but you're discarding your hand anyways, and you can play it at any point in the game. So this seems just a little bit gimmicky to me. So next up we have Candace. We already mentioned this card. Like I said, you look at the top 7 of your deck, get any number of water, Pokemon energy you find there, put them into your hand, shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Not a big fan of this, if I'm just gonna be honest, guys. Irida does kind of a similar thing, but just better. Like, I guess in theory, if all 7 of your top cards are water energy and water Pokemon, Candace is pretty decent, but most of the time, Irida is just gonna be better. You can guarantee a Pokemon and grab Capacious Bucket to guarantee energy, but also for the turns that you don't need energy, you can still grab other things like Quick Balls, you know, Cross Switchers, etc. I don't know. This card seems pretty bad to me. Like, unless we're playing the Glalie and Frostlass we took a look at, I'm probably not playing this in a deck, just being real. So for our last supporter card, we have Lance. This one says, search your deck for 3 Dragon Pokemon, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So one thing that is cool about this, it's basically a live card at any point in the game because it's not just basics. Not only can we, of course, grab our Regidrago Vs and stuff like that, but we can get our V-Stars and some of our other target Pokemon that we might want to throw away into the discard to copy with our Regidrago VSTAR. I think the jury's still out on what is going to be the best way to play Regidrago VSTAR. So for example, if we're playing Gardenia, this is not a card I would really want to play if I'm being honest, but maybe if it's like a Lost Box version of the deck with the Lost Engine, maybe I would consider this. But again, at the same time, you'd probably just want a Chorus. So this seems like it would have to be in a version of Regidrago that isn't playing the Lost Engine or Gardenia as its way of getting set up, which as a result kind of limits its viability. So it's okay, but I just don't know what we're playing this in. I guess outside of Regidrago, we could look at other Dragon Pokemon in the format, but there's really not a whole lot. Like, yeah, we have Giratina, but Giratina already has like better ways at getting set up than playing this thing. There's also the Garchomp from Brilliant Stars. I actually kind of like that card, but I don't think that's quite good enough to see play. If we think back to a card like Winona, that basically did the same thing for colorless Pokemon, what made that card good for a short period was the fact that it could grab Shaman EX to get set up. We don't really have like a Shaman EX, Crobat V, Lumineon V style of Pokemon to grab with our Lance. We basically just have like attackers, which definitely makes this card a little less versatile than some of those previous styles of supporters. So might not do a whole lot. So we have Primordial Altar, our only stadium card. This one says, once during each player's turn, that player may look at the top card of their deck. They may discard that card. So this is actually the same ability that we saw on Sableye back from Crystal Guardians, I'm pretty sure it was. And then later in, what was it? Celestial Storm, it got like a pseudo reprint, if my memory serves me correct. This effect is kind of okay. It kind of just reminds me of like a worse version of Pokestop though. You can theoretically get 3 cards that you can play. This is just discarding a card. Now, what deck would maybe want this? I guess maybe the Regi deck, but again, they would just rather have Pokestop. Maybe Regidrago VSTAR. There is definitely an argument for that. Those Stormy Mountains might just be a little bit better to help get set up. Not sure, but getting stuff in the discard isn't bad. So there's like a world where this could be good, but I think it has some pretty stiff competition with some of the other cards that exist in the format right now. So seems kind of low impact maybe in the short term. And then our last card of the Paradigm trigger set, it's going to be Regenerative Energy. Again, just a normal colorless energy, but whenever you play a Pokemon from hand to evolve the Pokemon V this card is attached to, heal 100 from that Pokemon. So this is basically just Wyndon Stadium, whatever it's called, in the form of an energy. And if you guys know anything about that card, it's not that good. Hasn't really seen no play up until this point for pretty good reason. Now, this is a little bit better because it's not limited to just VMAX. I think Wyndon Stadium is just for Pokemon VMAX, if my memory serves me correctly. So this is a little bit more flexible, but a lot of the time, if your basic Pokemon V is getting attacked, it's getting knocked out. Unless you're going against like Lost Box, then healing 100 is actually kind of relevant in that instance. And maybe that's good enough. Maybe that's good enough to warrant playing this card. But it definitely seems like one of the weaker special energies that we have in the format right now. But I think that's just kind of the general vibe of the set, guys. As you can tell, we really didn't look at a whole lot of really good stuff. I think probably the most notable cards, we of course have the Force Seal, like I said, for Mew decks. They're going to love that. And then maybe Lugia VSTAR and Regidrago VSTAR seem like the other standouts in terms of new attackers that we're getting. So, you know, Silver Tempest, it's not shaping up to be the most revolutionary set in the world. This definitely feels so far like a Vivid Voltage 2.0, if you want to think of it that way. But there's still definitely a couple cards worth getting excited about. And I still want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Do you think I'm being a little too harsh on these cards that we have coming out? Sound off down below in the comment section. Let me know your full thoughts on this new Paradigm trigger set. But as always, if you guys did enjoy today's content, remember to leave a like on the video. And if you're feeling a little bit extra generous and want to take that support to the next level, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch at rarecandytcg.com. Links to everything will be down below in the description, but as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.